Success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. In the darkness of a cold Virginia morning in 1908, Napoleon Hill sits at his small wooden table, a single candle flickering beside his journal. The world sleeps, but Hill is wide awake, his pen moving across the page with fierce determination. He's broke, unknown, and struggling, but something burns within him, a purpose that refuses to be extinguished by poverty or doubt. Napoleon Hill's early life in the mountains of Wise County, Virginia, was a masterclass in hardship. Born in 1883 in a one-room log cabin, he knew poverty as intimately as his own heartbeat. His father worked tirelessly in the coal mines, coming home each evening covered in black dust and exhaustion. The family barely had enough food to survive, and young Napoleon often went to bed with an empty stomach and a mind full of questions about why some people seemed destined for struggle while others lived in abundance. After his mother died when he was just 10 years old, Napoleon became the wild child of the mountains, angry, rebellious, and convinced that life had dealt him an impossible hand. He felt invisible in a world that seemed to have no place for poor mountain boys with big dreams. His teachers saw him as a troublemaker, his neighbors whispered that he would never amount to anything, and deep inside, Napoleon began to believe their harsh prophecies. His early attempts at building a future were met with crushing failure. Every business venture collapsed before it could take root. Publishers rejected his writing with form letters that felt like personal attacks on his worth. Financial hardship wasn't just an occasional visitor, it was his constant companion, reminding him daily that perhaps he was fooling himself about having any special potential. The loneliness was perhaps the heaviest burden of all. Napoleon felt like an imposter in his own life, pretending to have ambitions that seemed laughably beyond his reach. He would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling of whatever cramped room he could afford, wondering if he was destined to repeat the same cycle of limitation that had trapped his family for generations. The voice of discouragement whispered constantly, "Who are you to dream of greatness? You're just a poor boy from Virginia who doesn't know his place." But Napoleon had learned something that would change everything. Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle. Even in his darkest moments, he refused to surrender completely to despair. The turning point came in 1908 when Napoleon, now working as a struggling magazine writer, received an assignment that would alter the trajectory of his entire existence. He was sent to interview Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest and most successful men in America. As Napoleon approached Carnegie's magnificent mansion, he felt overwhelmed by the stark contrast between his own circumstances and the opulence before him. But during that pivotal 3-hour interview, something extraordinary unfolded. Carnegie didn't just share business insights, he revealed the philosophy behind his success. As they talked, Carnegie studied the young journalist with keen interest. Finally, he leaned forward and made an offer that would test every fiber of Napoleon's character. "Young man, I believe the world needs a comprehensive philosophy of success. Would you be willing to devote 20 years of your life to studying the most successful people in America and documenting their principles? I'll provide introductions, but you'll receive no payment for this work." Napoleon had 60 seconds to decide. His logical mind screamed that this was madness. He could barely afford his current lifestyle, let alone commit to 20 years of unpaid research. But something deeper, that burning sense of purpose that had sustained him through every failure, made the decision for him. "Yes, Mr. Carnegie, I accept your challenge." In that moment, Napoleon experienced an emotional shift that would define the rest of his life. The crushing weight of doubt began to lift, replaced by curiosity and a fierce ambition to prove that he was capable of something extraordinary. As Carnegie had taught him, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. With his new mission clear, Napoleon began developing the morning routine that would become the foundation of his transformation. Each day, he would wake at 4 a.m., long before the world stirred. In the quiet darkness, he would begin with visualization, seeing himself successfully completing his 20-year mission and helping millions of people achieve their dreams. He would repeat affirmations, feeding his subconscious mind with positive beliefs about his ability to succeed. His journal became his most trusted companion. Each morning, he would write out his definite major purpose, his plans for the day, and his reflections on the principles he was discovering. This wasn't just record-keeping, it was the daily practice of programming his mind for success. As Napoleon began interviewing the most successful people of his era, from Thomas Edison to Henry Ford, from John D. Rockefeller to Alexander Graham Bell, he systematically studied their habits and mindset. He discovered that nearly all of them had developed some form of morning routine that shaped their thinking before the world could influence them. Through his research, Napoleon identified the core principles that separated the successful from the unsuccessful. First was definiteness of purpose. The successful had crystal-clear goals and unwavering commitment to achieving them. Second was faith and belief. They maintained absolute certainty in their ability to succeed even when circumstances suggested otherwise. Third was persistence. They refused to give up, viewing setbacks as temporary obstacles rather than permanent defeats. Most importantly, Napoleon discovered the power of autosuggestion, the practice of deliberately feeding the subconscious mind with positive thoughts and beliefs. Each morning, as part of his routine, he would repeat his goals and affirmations with such emotional intensity that they became embedded in his subconscious programming. As the months and years passed, Napoleon's morning routine became more than just a collection of habits, it became his identity. The quiet, focused hours before dawn transformed him from someone who hoped for success into someone who expected it. His confidence grew with each interview, each insight, each day of disciplined practice. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve became more than just a philosophy, it became his lived experience. But Napoleon's journey wasn't without its darkest hour. 15 years into his research, he hit rock bottom again. Publishers continued to reject his work, calling it too optimistic for the harsh realities of business. His savings were depleted, creditors were knocking at his door, and even his closest friends questioned whether he had wasted the best years of his life chasing an impossible dream. One morning, as he sat with his journal in the pre-dawn darkness, Napoleon felt the weight of 15 years of struggle pressing down on him. He considered abandoning his mission and finding regular employment like everyone had advised him to do years earlier. But then he did something that would change everything. He reviewed his own writing, studying the principles he had been documenting for over a decade. In that moment of crisis, Napoleon realized that he had been teaching principles he wasn't fully living. He had been studying success while still thinking like someone who merely hoped to be successful. That morning, he made a profound decision. He would not just document these principles, he would embody them completely. When Think and Grow Rich was finally published in 1937, it became an overnight sensation. But Napoleon knew the real success wasn't in the book sales, it was in the transformed lives of people who applied his principles. Letters poured in from readers around the world who had used his teachings to overcome poverty, build successful businesses, and achieve dreams they had once thought impossible. Napoleon Hill had become a global figure in personal development, but the transformation was even more remarkable when viewed against his humble beginnings. The coal miner's son who had once felt invisible had become a mentor to millions. The boy who had struggled with self-doubt had become one of the most confident and influential teachers in human history. His teachings inspired countless people to rise early, believe in themselves, and take consistent action toward their goals. But Napoleon always emphasized that everything had started with a simple decision to wake up before the world and shape his own mind through disciplined practice. Looking back on his journey, Napoleon understood that greatness isn't built in the spotlight of public recognition, it's built in the quiet, early morning hours when no one is watching. It's built through the daily decision to believe in yourself when circumstances suggest you shouldn't. It's built through the persistent application of principles that transform not just what you do, but who you are. His morning routine had been more than just a collection of positive habits, it had been the daily practice of becoming the person capable of achieving his dreams. Each dawn brought a new opportunity to choose faith over fear, purpose over confusion, and action over inaction. Napoleon Hill's legacy proves that extraordinary success begins with ordinary mornings transformed by extraordinary commitment. His life demonstrates that when you consistently wake up to shape your mind before the world shapes it for you, you develop the mental strength and clarity needed to achieve any worthy goal. You don't have to be the best to start, but you do have to start to be the best.